What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Corporate Bartender. I think you're going to dig today's episode. We're talking about post-pandemic careers, finding meaning and fulfillment, and transforming the paradigm of work and career. It's a big day. We're jazzed to have Misha Rubin on the show today. If you don't know Misha, you're missing out. Misha is a former Big Four partner and the creator of the Career Leap Method, a guided inquiry that helps folks get deep and unlock new possibilities in line with their values. Oh yeah, and he's got an album out on all your favorite streaming services. So buckle up, TCBers, grab your favorite cocktail, and let's get right on into it with Misha Rubin on today's TCB.
Welcome to SkyTeam's The Corporate Bartender. If you work in HR or make people decisions in your organization, this is the place to be. Now pull up a stool, belly up to the bar, and join us for The Corporate Bartender.
Well, welcome, everybody. It's really good to see each and every one of you. It is Wednesday. It's Corporate Bartender Day. It's October 6th. We are squarely into Q4 now, episode number 104. And I just don't have it in me to take the party hat off the cocktail there on the slide. She got that on our 100th episode, and I think she's still partying. That's what I think. Today's going to be a fun day. We've got a guest today. We've got Misha Rubin with us today. We'll get into some post-pandemic career stuff. We'll talk a little bit about what happens. You know, the pandemic gave everybody a chance to do some soul searching and reassessment on where we spend our time. And do we really want to keep doing the job that we kind of fell into 25 years ago? Misha spends a lot of time with mid-career folks who are looking for happiness, engagement, and fulfillment in their work calling. So we'll talk a little bit about what happens with those folks who find themselves on that quest. And then what do we as HR people do when our employees find themselves on that quest and they quest themselves on out of our companies? So we'll talk a little bit about that. We've got Becca Ribbing coming up here on the 20th. She's the author of the Clarity Journal. She talks beyond self-care, talks about getting unstuck and finding momentum. So it's kind of a cool thing, right? We'll start here with Misha today on getting clear about what we want to be when we grow up. And then next time we'll get together with Becca and she'll tell us how to keep that ball rolling down the hill. So with that, a couple of news items for you. I wanted to shine the light on a couple of things that have been posted over on the Bartender Network in the last few days. I don't know if you guys saw this. Karen posted, she actually posted a PDF of this proposal, essentially, that she got. I'm going to drop the link to it in chat so you guys can read it if you want to. It's in a Bartender post. There you go. It's this company called Kettle Health, and they have this health and safety platform, digital platform for vax mandates, return to work, all sorts of things. The platform allows people to do vaccine verification. You can report COVID test results. It integrates with access control. So I'm assuming here, I haven't gone deeply through the whole article, but I'm assuming that if you don't have your vaccination or you don't pass your test, your key card doesn't work anymore. It doesn't let you in the building. But it seems like a really comprehensive system. So for those that are treading the line of vax mandates, and I know there are a few of you out there, I don't know, seemed like a potential option. And she wanted to share that with everybody. So I thought that was pretty cool.
But gee, Excel spreadsheets are so efficient for this.
Right? Everybody loves a good Excel spreadsheet. Hey, you could upgrade to Google spreadsheets where people could see them at the same time. I don't know.
I could, but that's a whole different corporate issue.
It's true. It's true. Speaking of different corporate issues, we talked about this the other day when Laurel mentioned something on the network about choosing Zoom as your provider versus Slack.
Right.
Morag and I had to facilitate a program today on Microsoft Teams. Yeah. Big thumbs down on Teams. I've had to use Teams a few times. Normally I'm pretty savvy in conning clients into letting me host the platform. But this was a large corporate customer, and it was a no-go with their IT. And it was interesting because even their IT was like, this doesn't work. I'm like, I can't help you, bud. For example, we were doing breakout rooms, and we set a timer for the second breakout room for 5 minutes because it was a quick one. And then we were getting ready to do the third breakout. And he said, how long should this one be? And I said, 10 minutes. And he goes, crap, I can't change the timer. It's stuck at 5 minutes. Can you make it 5 minutes? Because that's what it's going to be.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And this is a workshop with 120 attendees. So yeah, Teams, no, thank you. That's what I have to say. Microsoft will not be sponsoring the corporate bartender. I can guarantee you that. Other article, actually, our pal Evans Mayhew posted this one. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago about location-based pay and how that's changing, how that's becoming sort of a thing of the past. But what's been really interesting here is there are a few tech companies that are holding steadfast onto that, where Google, being the leader of that pack, are still looking to reduce folks' compensation if they move outside of their main metros, meaning, New York and San Francisco being the two primary metros.
And that is, not only is that so stupid, but it's, okay, I'm in Boulder. Google came into Boulder, and now we have to pay a premium to get people to work in Boulder because they jacked pay like 20+% in an environment that was, fairly decent, but not Bay Area
crazy,
or New York.
yeah.
And they've probably done that in other places as well. And now they want to drive it back down.
Yeah.
Like, no, you caused this issue, you bleeper.
Bleeper.
Didn't you like that? Wasn't that, it's amazing what happens when you put that little record button on. But it's like, wait a minute, if I was worth X dollars sitting in your office, I should still be worth X dollars sitting wherever else I'm sitting. If you were paying too much, that's your own darn fault. And for those of us who pay too little, then we can't cut if you move to Arkansas because we'd be below minimum wage. So, even for software developers, it's just doesn't work.
It's pretty fascinating. Laura, you came off mute. Did you have something to toss into the party here?
Not at all. That was an accident. My dog.
Back in the day, it did work. It was very common. And
for sure,
that ship sailed.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's interesting. Some of the things in this article, Google's a desirable employer, right? Sure. There was a study that Recode did. 53% of 230 verified Google workers said they would think about leaving if they moved and had their pay cut. I mean, that's half. The sort of statistic for the population writ large is 68% of professionals. But even in, with all the perks of working at Google, half the people said, yeah, don't mess with my pay. And it's interesting, too, because Googlers were more likely than the population at large, 30% to 22%, to have already moved outside of their metro.
Yeah, sure.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. Of the larger population, there was a study that of 753 organizations, and 95% of those companies said, yeah, we're not going to lower people's pay. We're just not going to do it. So it seems interesting that Google's out there on the tip of that spear. One of the comments at the end of the article is kind of thrown in at the end. Somebody was postulating that maybe this is a strategy to weed people out of Google, and they're going to, right? I thought, well, that's pretty sneaky.
We just did a vaccine mandate instead.
That's a weed out tool for sure.
Yeah. Didn't work. We only lost 2 people.
Oh, and they probably weren't the ones you were trying to lose either.
Thank you. But 2 out of 380, let's call it. Whereas when you survey people, 40% or something say, oh, if they mandated, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably not true.
I had people, I had so many of those 11th hour vaccinations come through.
Right? Right. I'm never
it,
getting that. And then here it comes, right? Boom.
Oh, it was this huge game of chicken last week.
Oh, that must be fun for you as the HR person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yikes.
I was drinking heavily last week.
Yeah, I'm in the throes of that right now. Our deadline's the 18th. So
lucky
literally I'm chasing people around. I was like, I told my boss, I feel like, the CDC or something, or,
yeah,
or who,
you guys are like 90 something percent though, right? You're plus 90.
We're about 97%, but it's those, 10 people that we're chasing around who are, like I said, playing chicken, and it's just ridiculous.
So Yvonne,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Laurel.
3 days before a deadline. Okay. The deadline was Thursday. On Tuesday prior, my sidekick did an exit interview, and the woman dropped a racial and sexual harassment charge on the exit interview.
Oh, I had one of those this week too.
Yeah.
It was like my boss treats me poorly, yelling at me. Yeah. I was like, well, thanks for sharing, even though you were here 5 years and it said nothing.
Thank you. Yes.
And
being a dick is not illegal.
Well, that's it. And
not
that's
a protected class.
Yeah. He's an equal opportunity dick. Yeah.
Offender,
Misha, you don't know what you're getting yourself into with this group right now.
I'm glad Ruby wasn't.
I was like, you didn't warn me.
Yvonne, you said, I noticed in chat, I just want to say it out loud. You decided to keep everyone's salary the same regardless of locale.
Yeah.
Was that a tough decision, or was that something that you guys were all pretty much, we're on board with this?
No, we chatted about it for a couple. It took us months to get there. However, the reason why we decided to do it was twofold. We didn't want to take anything away from people, and we also wanted to be fair to people that we had purposely placed in areas, bump their salary to the DC salary, because they were making far less, maybe 25% less based on the locale, because DC is a very expensive place to live. Mm-hmm. And so we decided, you know what, we're just going to pay at the DC rate. It makes it easier on our compensation partner, because we don't have to worry about what locale you're in. And if you live in a place that pays more than DC, then we'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis. And so it was literally laziness and fairness all wrapped up in one.
It's a fine line between laziness and fairness, Yvonne. No.
Yeah, but we had some people that made out. They were making maybe $100,000 in Alabama, and they're making now $130,000 living in Alabama. So good luck.
Living large
for them. Yeah.
In South Bama Lama. I love it. Well, I mean, it's an interesting conversation, right? And I think it's one that's going to continue as things start to settle. Because to Laurel's point, back in the day, it made sense and it worked. And anymore, especially in the knowledge economy, I don't know that it does, right? And companies making choices. I mean, because it works, it's a two-sided coin, right? Companies make choices to be somewhere historically because of talent, right? If you were a tech company, you wanted to be in Silicon Valley because that's where the talent was. But that dynamic is changing too. And as a CEO of a company, do I want to put my company in the middle of a really expensive place to be, or can I leave it in Evansville, Indiana, and do that from there? And I think that's going to be a thing to watch over the next couple of years. And I think we're going to see the sort of peaks and valleys of geographic compensation sort of smooth out into some quasi national range. At least that's what I think. We'll see. All right. Well, as always, good talk, Russ. Good talk. Today we've got a guest. We've got Misha Rubin. He's a career educator. He's an entrepreneur. He's a speaker. He has done his time in corporate America. I think he was a 20-year. Were you a 20-year person in corporate America, Misha? 20 years inside the corporate machine. He
a little more, but let's leave it at 20. I think 20 is enough.
20 is it's a nice round number, right?
Yeah.
Misha was a partner at Ernst & Young. He managed over $100 million worth of projects. He advised a lot of people, and since then, he's guided a lot of careers. His personal quest has always been about finding meaning and fulfillment, right? And that's what produced his baby. His baby is called the Career Leap, and it's a method. It's a pragmatic method for elevating people, finding clarity about what they want to do next. And it's focused largely on mid-career folks. So folks like us who have done things for 20 years or whatever. Apart from doing that, Misha's a musician. You can actually go out onto the streaming services and you can listen to the Misha album. There's some stuff out there for you. When he joined me today, I was listening to it. I'll just give you a little taste of the Misha record here. His record is called Are We Ready? And Misha, you have a different surname in the music world. Will you pronounce this surname for our folks here?
I know I really made it difficult. It's Misha Louve. That's my artist name. Lyuve.
So you look for Misha Louve out on Spotify and Apple Music. It's his side project. He hasn't done it in a while, though, because he adopted three kids. He's got 2 twin girls who are 8 and a boy who's aged 11. So he is right in the thick of being kid Uber driver. Misha, welcome to the program. Everybody, let's give it up for Misha. You get walk-on music and everything, Misha. That's how we roll around
it's
here.
So much fun. Okay.
Well, hey, as we get into the conversation, when people join the bartender, we always ask them a few questions. So we're going to put you through the same treatment that we would put you through if you were just a normal person coming to hang out with us. We ask people where they are, what they do, because we know who you are, and we ask for one really boring fact about them.
Boring.
So where are you? What do you do? And what is one really boring fact about Misha Rubin?
We recently moved out of New York City. So right now I live with foxes and deer in Westchester, New York. What was the second question? Sorry, I lost the
What do you do? How do you characterize what you do?
I say that I'm a career educator. I teach people about careers, how to discover them, how for them to understand why they are not happy or not fulfilled, how to guide them to find right careers for them. I work with mid-career professionals, but I recently launched the first program for high school and college students. And cool. I work with executives. So I also work with leaders and CEOs. I have a program for an organization, how to transform organization into values-driven organization. And I also work with people that retire, thinking to retire. So people or organizations that want to make a leap, I have a lot to say.
Well, you cover the whole spectrum there, from high school to people looking to retire. Who's easiest to work with of those groups? Is it the high schoolers or is it the mid-career people? Who's the easiest group to work with?
I think mid-career people I understand the best. The high schooler was like, oh my God, I need to talk to all these teenagers. It was like it was a new territory for me. But I did okay. I'm just piloting my high schoolers.
So tell us a little bit about the Career Leap. How did it come to be? I understand you were in a meeting and had this epiphanal sort of moment when you decided that this was a thing that was calling you.
Like I started my career, and maybe for you guys will be familiar. Maybe you have a lot of people like me. I started jumping a new job every 2 years. That was my beginning. And then I took a year off to find my passion. That was fashionable those times. I had a great time. I didn't discover what I was looking for. And then
did you go backpacking across Europe? Is that what you did?
I moved to Spain. Yeah, I lived in Madrid. I had a fabulous time.
Ruby's super jealous. I can see it on her face.
I can't even tell you all the stories, but it was really great. Now, and then I, took a traditional route. So I stayed with one organization for 15 years. I joined Ernst & Young as a manager, and then suddenly my career was going up, and the next thing I knew, I was a partner. Everybody was like, "Oh, Misha, you're doing so well," and I did. Honestly, as an immigrant coming into the United States, I couldn't have imagined, being that successful and making that much money and doing all these things. And I remember this particular meeting that I was sitting in, and I call it like the meeting where a moment of truth happened, right? So, and it was truly a moment of choice, because on one hand, I did have this great career and I knew what I was doing. But on the other hand, I knew that I was paying some other price for that, and that on the other side, I really didn't have an idea what I wanted to do. I had 3 small kids. I'm a breadwinner in the family, so it wasn't like a light.
That's decision. A fun conversation to come home and share with the spouse. So don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have a very supportive spouse. So, but yeah, it was like, oh my God, and it was kind of going that way. But there was this moment when it was like, I just knew it was time. And at that time, I started developing, I was very interested in personal development. And, I developed several brands, educational brands, where I had worked with other teachers. But then one July morning, I woke up and suddenly I had the answer. I knew exactly why I wasn't happy, and I had language for it, and I knew how to articulate it to others and how to help others. And given I have this, my curse is opposite from procrastination. It's like when I have an idea, I run like crazy executing it, which has its own faults. So I pretty much next day developed a simple website, posted on LinkedIn, on Facebook, got my first 3 students, and everything else is history. So since then, I've been working with people one-on-one and groups. I've been teaching, I've been speaking on podcasts, at live events, I've been educating people about careers. I've never spoken to HR professionals, and I was telling Eric that every time I talk to kind of a different audience, oh my God, that makes me come up with millions of ideas. So I can see tomorrow I'll be like doing something crazy. Because you will inspire me, like how I can help HR professionals.
We'll get a link to the HR Leap, how to get the hell out of HR.
Yeah. Well, HR Leap, you guys, it's the same as other career leaps. But I think as HR professionals, you're probably facing a very unique dilemma, right? You are in many ways a face of this organization, right? You're representing this organization to these people. So you kind of like really in the midst. So I find it's a fascinating role. It's an important role. So so I'm very excited to talk to you.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Career Leap. What is it? How did you come up with it? And what does it aspire to do for the people who participate in it?
Yeah. So I work with a person, I will define it, a competent, unfulfilled professional, somebody who is educated enough, good at work, good at what they do enough, maybe successful enough, but not fulfilled at their job, right? And very often these people are just stuck. They might have tried to do some things and make some changes, but they end up like, I don't even know, where do I start? How do I look? And they have all these concerns about, do I have the right skills? Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I won't be able to support my family. There's all this paradigm of thinking that happens. So I developed this methodology that fundamentally consists of 2 pieces. So the first piece is really around discovery. And my methodology is based around what I call unique career criteria. So as individuals, we have some very unique qualities, preferences, the way of being that represent us. And if we just knew what they are, right? So imagine, you guys, imagine if you worked in an organization that's aligned with your values, and you were solving the problem that's aligned with your values. If you were doing the work that fits your strengths, that's built on your strengths. If the mechanism, if the setup of the work was such that you were motivated and your motivation mechanism would kick in, and we all have this interpersonal profile. So the way you build relationship and interact with internal or external folks is aligned with your interpersonal profile. So if you were that, I call this is your thrive zone, right? So in that place, what naturally would occur, you would be enthusiastic, you would be committed to results, you would grow, and you would be in your peak performance. It would be just a natural outcome. So the question is, how do you know yourself, right? So you know all these different pieces. And then if you actually know them, then from there you can, first of all, you will be immediately clear why you're not fulfilled at your current job. It will be abundantly clear because there's some type of a mismatch. The second of all, we build what I call a career leap map, which is a comprehensive list of ideas of where and what you could be doing. And then from there, my students select their leaps, right? And sometimes it's more than one. They could create a longer term leap and a shorter term leap. Some of them decide to start their businesses. So there's a lot of different options in how it works. So the first part of my method is discovery. And discovery, basically knowing what to do, is a function of knowing who you are. So in discovery, you get to know and articulate who you are and choose a direction for yourself inside of that. And then the second piece is the pursuit. So it's about how, now that you know what it is you want, how you go after it. And I developed an unorthodox way of looking for jobs, right? So the traditional way, there's all these job postings that are happening on LinkedIn and other places. And I honestly think you can definitely find a job that way. But to find that dream job, the ones that's meaningful, fulfilling, the ones that's right for you, I think it's a slim chance of finding through job posts. So I developed a methodology of how you can actually identify organizations that want that are solving the type of problem that you want to solve and that are aligned with your unique career criteria. And from there, how do you communicate with them? How do you get noticed? So I teach my students to write what I call a magic letter. And the reason that I call it magic, because the intention is to produce a nonlinear outcome, right? So you want somebody who doesn't know you, who never heard about you, respond to you, right? So, the principles of that communication, you got to be authentic, you got to be relevant, and you got to be transparent. And I'm sure as HR professionals, you're probably driven, they probably drive you crazy with these communications. That's like, oh my God, you don't even know, as if you didn't even do research who you're sending this cover letter to, right? You're probably familiar with that, right? So
what?
Yeah. But if you write actually in an authentic way, what is the problem you want to solve? Why? If you really understand what that organization is, what are the goals, who is the person that you're writing to, and you're being transparent potentially about your gaps, there is a magic happens, and that happens over and over again with my students. And then from there, I teach my students how to interview, because the traditional interview model is that they, meaning you guys, interviewing a candidate, and where the candidate is trying to pretend to be the best they could ever be, right? And inside of that, there is something that's actually being lost for both parties. So I say, if you are authentic, relevant, and transparent, you will give enough information to your potential employer to make a decision whether you're the right candidate for them. But instead of focusing on your performance, you should be actually asking questions about that organization to make sure that the organization, the team, your manager is the right fit for you. And then from there, I teach them how to negotiate. So that's like a full-blown pursuit module. And then underneath all of that, I work through mindset, because as humans, we develop disempowering beliefs, and those beliefs actually don't allow us to see certain opportunities that are in front of us. By the way, a lot of people give up on their career change because they actually don't even understand what are the opportunities they have. And of course, it makes your pursuit much more complicated and much more painful. So I do whole work around mindset. Yeah, and my intention that people find meaningful, fulfilling careers where they can be successful, that work for their lives, that where they thrive, right? Thrive is the key word here.
It's fascinating. And so many things have popped to my mind. Just listening to the methodology bit, and this will date me seriously. It reminds me a little bit of anybody here familiar with the book, What Color is Your Parachute? Yeah, right. That book goes back to the late 70s, early 80s. And, back then it was about finding companies that you were aligned with out of the phone book, because that was the data source that we all had available to us. So I like this notion of finding something that aligns with who you are. And I love this concept of the discovery process of trying to figure out, okay, so what is it that I'm all about?
Right.
And what do I want to do or be? And I think I've got your next product right here, Misha. It's popped into my head as you were talking. One of the things that we as HR people struggle with a lot is career pathing. It's a challenge inside of a lot of organizations. It's one of those things, I spent most of my career working in technology companies and startups. And it's one of those things where when you go to the CEO, when you've got 50 people and you say, look, we got to start thinking about career pathing. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to make payroll this week. So that's not a thing that I'm going to talk about. And it's not until, now it's 5 years later and we're 300 people big. And the CEO comes to the HR person and says, Eric, we got to do something about career pathing. And I'm like, hey, dude, I've been saying this since day 12 and it's a little late right now to start that. So as a consultant, I've worked with a lot of companies who are established brands that have been around for a long time, and they have no internal career pathing mechanism. So what they have is they have this population of people that say, look, I know I'm good at this job, but I don't want to do this job forever. I don't know what else I can do here. So rather than find a place where they can thrive inside the organization, they leave. Right? What if there was a mechanism for us to go through this discovery process and this pursuit process with opportunities that are internal to the organization? Because we lose so much talent. Listening to you tell the story, it made me think about this project that I worked on. I used to work for a large telecom company, and we did a sort of a talent accounting. Right. So we went off and we carved off a population of employees, high potential employees, whatever. And we interviewed them all to find out what they did prior to the job that they're doing, prior to coming to our company. Right. Because you have a person that's, a director in marketing, but, once upon a time back in the day, they used to work in finance. Right. So when we were coming at it from a succession planning process, like, who could we use as an emergency fill that's not one of the usual suspects, right? But like most HR initiatives, we interviewed 100 people, we processed all the data, and then we did a big fat nothing with it, right? So processes like yours, I can see in my head a space for them inside of organizations to prevent this talent outflow that we're all struggling with right now. Right now, we're dealing with what's been dubbed the Great Resignation, because people, as a result of COVID and a lot of time alone, are sort of reevaluating what's important to them.
Right.
And there's no mechanism for them to see if there's anything that aligns with what's important to them inside the organization that they're already in. Right. So what are the things that we as HR people can do? Are there any method or components of your ideas that, if only HR people would ask a question, could we help stave off this outflow of talent that we're seeing?
Yeah. So I would say maybe there are two things that I see here. One is, this is a big thing. So and maybe you guys can also help me a little bit here. I think the first and foremost, people leave organization and people don't feel fulfilled because they not align to the values of organization. It's really that fundamental. and organization and their values, it's a very interesting thing, because some organizations don't talk about their values. Some organizations put something on their website or some corporate memos.
Posters in the lobby. Yeah.
Posters in the lobby. Like, to me, something that was fundamental about values, and maybe let me give you an example of Ernst & Young, because so Ernst & Young used to have, the tagline used to be quality in everything we do, which is a very unsexy tagline, but it was so true, because our clients cared about quality. We had a lot of quality controls, and every person was evaluated on quality. So if there is a value and it propagates through business practices, through measurements, through performance, through your financial rewards, right? Then that value becomes a true value of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
If you are working in organization or solving a problem and your values are not aligned with that, it actually doesn't matter what you do. So what you do is less important than where you work. That's the thing. So for organizations, so I think it's a lot of soul searching for organizations, and I don't know whether the boards, the senior management, the CEOs are willing to do that. Do we want to be a value-driven organization? And value-driven organization means, listen, we all I get it. We all want to make money and, be responsible to shareholders and keep Wall Street. I get all of that. But if there is something higher than that drives the organization, I think that organization will attract then talent that has these values.
So I don't disagree with you. And what you're saying is making me think, we work with a few values-driven organizations. They work in the educational space.
Great.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you can ask anybody in the building, what do you do? And they know, and they have a short one-line answer for what they do about teaching kids to read or educating kids or whatever. And for the most part, the organization does that. And they, what I find really interesting is that people who work for these sort of mission-driven orgs,
mm-hmm.
they have a high pain threshold. They like being identified with that organization. So
Right.
they put up with a little bit more bullshit than normal people do.
Yeah.
And in working with executives in mission-driven organizations, they want to be values-driven. They believe they are.
Right.
But when you get 2 or 3 levels deep in the organization, it's just not being handled in the same way.
Mm.
Right. So as HR people, right, we see both sides of that coin. We see what the C-suite is trying to accomplish. We know what our external marketing says about who we are. And we know that because of people's high pain thresholds, we've allowed some less than stellar managers up into, manager, director, VP ranks that I see people laughing, that aren't doing it the way that we ought to be doing it. So from an HR perspective, knowing that we're in this time of sort of soul searching and reevaluation, is there anything we can do, Misha? I mean, to stave off the outflow, to get us refocused on being a values-driven organization?
I would say that organization that has leadership committed to values, that propagating values down is much simpler problem that if the leadership is not committed to it. So I think if organization is truly committed to it, to me, what's important that the values are being propagated in everything, right? In your business practices, in your practices in employee, in performance management, in your internal communications, so that becomes suddenly a criteria for the things. It's not just something that you put on a website, but if your value is customer service, right? So for instance, then you suddenly think about HR should be treating their employees as customers, right? Then leadership should treat their employees as customers, right? If that's truly a value. So then employees can treat their customers with a value of customer. Then it would propagate, and then you would create metrics, including for leaders, in terms of their leadership roles, in how they interact with their employees, right? If your value is integrity, then you create that value and you operate inside of that value, that's a high bar. Then you don't want leaders to cut corners and, do some things that don't have integrity. Then they need to exemplify that. So I think propagating values is just remembering that values, it's a life thing. When I teach my students about values, I said, if there's one thing I can teach you, if you know your values, that's your best measure. Is that the right organization? Is that the right leader? Is that the right career? So values should be driving all the decision making. And if employees see that, it's very hard not to notice this.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. It makes me think of something that Ruby says all the time. Ruby's like, what did I say? Executives sometimes have a stilted view of what's actually going on inside of organizations. What Ruby says is the higher up the food chain you get, the less likely people are to tell you what's really going on. And I wonder if this values conundrum, right, is partially exacerbated by executives thinking that everything is cool. The values have propagated, everything is hunky-dory, but 2 levels deep, that ain't what it feels like. And that's what's causing those frontline employees to have this sort of this disalignment, this misalignment with what they're about and what they feel like the company's about, despite what's on the website.
Right. But I would say, think about how much organizations care about their financials, right? Mm-hmm. And what are all the things that created around their financials, right? There is internal controls functions. There is internal audit. There are SOX. There's all these things that operate because financials are so important. Now, if the values are so important, then you need to have an audit of your values. You need to see whether the business practices align with their values, whether your employee relationships align with your values. You need whether your performance management is aligned with your values. So I think that's a great way. If you want to get feedback around your financials, that's why you have internal audit. They will tell you what's wrong, whether you don't have controls, what's not being executed. So if you care about your values, you got to be committed that they're propagating everything, that they not just words on the website, or you actually use them to drive your communication, to drive your performance management, to choose your clients, to create service offerings. I'm telling you, if it's truly engraved in the culture, employees will definitely feel. The reason they don't feel it, it's only because it's just words someplace. So that basically there is no real commitment to values. Employees, if organization has true values, then people that have these values would be attracted to that organization. So if you look at Apple and look at what type of talent Apple was, because they had values of innovation, of excellence. It was true. It wasn't just words. So they would attract that type of a talent. It would naturally happen. So if your values are not propagating, then someplace they're not being true. That someplace they're just being words.
It's true.
Right?
It's funny hearing you talk about audits as the perpetrator of many an audit of things. As an HR person, I can tell you everybody loves a good audit. That's what everybody loves to line up for. It's a fascinating thing. I want to kind of shift gears because we talked about this before too, and I think the pandemic shined a light on it. And given the types of folks that you talk to, I'm sure you'll have an opinion. Education has changed, and it was on a path to change, right? The old school ideal of, you graduate high school, you go get a 4-year degree, you get an MBA, right? Whatever. That's been changing. And companies like Google have been at the forefront of driving that kind of change. But the pandemic made us realize that going to a place to get a 4-year degree and paying a lot of money may not make the most sense. So in your purview, given the work that you do and the people that you interact with, has the value of a college education changed, and is it continuing to evolve?
Yeah, I personally look forward to collapsing of our educational system, because I think it's really unworkable, unmanageable, unnecessary in the way it is. So the education that became, so first of all, you have, and I have a lot of, my kids are younger, but I see it a lot of children of my friends, right? So you have these kids that are very much shielded during the growing up time. So when children are shielded and don't have enough, the way we know who we are, right? Knowing what to do in life is function of knowing who you are. The way you know who you are by having a lot of experiences in life. That basically, you have this experience and you get data points about what works for you, what doesn't. So suddenly you have that person, right, that actually doesn't have a lot of data points about who they are, that facing a question like, what do I do with my life? And what they do, they go and their parents spend, a very extravagant amount of money for them to go and figure out what it is they want to do. A great book that I highly recommend is called Startup Nation. It's about actually Israel. And the author actually examines why Israel has so many innovative startups. And he looked at a lot of different factors of that. But one of the things he says that kids don't go to college after school. They serve in the army, then they go, they travel the world, then they go, and then they come back, once they actually have a lot of data points about themselves, right? They learned a lot about themselves. And then they go, and it's like, oh my God, I want to do it. And then when they choose to study, they actually have a purpose, have a meaning, they know why they're doing it, right? Versus, I think, US education, a lot of these people end up suddenly, for the first time, they end up outside of their home. You're right, outside of the control of their parents. So
and they go bananas.
Exactly. So they actually want to do all these other things they didn't get a chance to do living at their parents' home. And a lot of them, of course, don't have an idea of what it is they want to do, and they're forced to make some choices, and they will pay for these choices later on. So I think that whole paradigm is just unworkable. And the cost of education, the value of education, the purpose of education, it's kind of really, none of it truly makes sense. So, and honestly, right now, Harvard Business School announced that they will have remote classes. So you not only pay these enormous amount of money, but suddenly you do it online. Well, really, I don't want to compare it to Harvard, but if you want to get an MBA nowadays, you can get it online if you want to get some scalable skills in technology, in marketing, in a lot of disciplines, you really don't need to be in college. And I think it's just reality. And
Khan Academy, baby. Khan Academy, right?
And what I really wish that people don't rush with college, that they actually get to go and live life. Then I'm just trying to think about how I'll do it with my parents. Maybe like I would encourage my kids to take a year off and go and volunteer in Africa. I don't know, do something with their lives. Try to start a business. Nowadays, you can start a business when you're in a teenager. There's nothing stopping you if you want to be an entrepreneur. There are so many things you can do. And then you can say, okay, now I know what I want to do. So then, then college might make actually sense if you clear about what it is you want to do and what is your end goal. And graduate degree, the same thing, I think, right now, college is not enough. Everybody need to get a graduate degree on top of college. And maybe sometimes there is a value to that, but I think people are overeducated, and I don't think it necessarily brings the value that they're expecting to. That's kind of, I also don't want to put like this a blank statement. Actually, it is kind of a blank statement. I understand in individual situations, it could work out differently, but I think generally that's my view.
I love it. Thank you. Misha, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. If people want to connect with you or learn more about the Career Leap, where do we go online to find you?
So you guys, there are two places where you go. If you want to learn more about me, go to misharubin.com. You'll see pretty pictures of me and interviews and even links to my album. You can dig it out there. And then, and maybe some music videos, maybe that will get you going. And then, but if you, as HR professionals thinking about, maybe I should make a career leap, like I am ready for my career leap. I've been thinking about it. I'm ready. You go to thecareerleap.com. My next program starts on November 17th. I do magic with my students. You can set up time with me. I'm happy to chat. This is me.
I think Laurel's already registered for that course.
Yeah. Let me see. I just got a text. Yeah.
Guys, any questions for Misha before we shift into our funny things, cocktail and good feel story and get out of here?
Lori has a question too. Do you want me to go?
Go, Ruby.
Okay. Thinking about, I feel like I've been encountering a lot of people who are at this burnout level, especially over the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what's the differentiator for me to know, or the telling sign that I'm not really in a career place, but I'm burned out.
Yeah. Okay. So why people burned out? There are several reasons to that. So again, it starts with they're not clear who they are. They're not clear about their values. They're not clear. They might not be not clear about their boundaries, and they may not be willing or able, or might be afraid to communicate that with their leadership. So where I would look, so if you see that people are burned out, I would look, I would help people to understand what their boundaries are, and I would create an environment where they can communicate their boundaries to their seniors.
Yeah, I think getting clear on those boundaries is a challenge. You know, I know that. Sorry, hey, go ahead, Ruby.
Well, I think that people leave jobs and professions because they're just tired, but that may not be the answer.
Because they create the same problem in the next job.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, creating boundaries is actually very simple. This is complete misconception. It's just people don't think about it. Nobody teaches them how to do that. It's actually very simple. I can sit down with any person and say, what is your boundary? Like, what is your boundary? Like, how much time are you willing to work a week? You know, or how, like, what are the hours? Like, if you have, actually setting up boundaries, it's a very straightforward exercise. It's just nobody asks people to do that. Nobody teaches people how to do that. And then if there is no culture to do that, then people actually, even if they have idea of their boundaries, they're terrified to communicate them.
That's the kicker, right? The culture bit. Because I have ideas about what my boundaries are, and then I change them, right? I work all the time because I feel obligated, or I see somebody else working and I think, oh, well, I should probably be working too, right? The social pressure of that. Yeah. And holding to those things, even if I think I'm clear on what they ought to be, is hard if there's no sort of cultural imperative to do so. Right. And that, I guess that goes back to what you're saying about being a values-driven organization. Makes sense.
Yeah, it all comes to personal, like, again, if you understand your personal values, it's much easier to put boundaries. And then also if organization has the right values and you mismatch in the values, it's also much easier to communicate them. So yes, I think the values is the best criteria you have for everything. So I think as HR professionals, this is for the complexity of your job, and I get it, because you're kind of torn between two things. On one hand, you have your personal values, and then you need to see whether your personal values are match this organization that you're representing. Because if there is a mismatch, every time you're talking to candidate, you need to do some soul twist, Right. So that's your first thing. And then the second thing is with a candidate, because they have their values. So you need to be able to evaluate them from organization perspective. So that's why I think your job is like soul heavy, especially if you're not working in an organization that you aligned, that you are behind what it is they're doing.
Yeah. I think you guys got a new hashtag, Soul Twist. I wrote that down. That's a good one. Thanks, Misha. Lori, did you have a question?
Not a question, just kind of a comment tagging on to when you originally started talking about bringing your values and what have you. And I think this has come up a number of times with different guests, is about bringing your whole self to work. And I love that you shared, for example, the music piece. That seems to be a common theme with a lot of us. But people at work, and kind of that part and parcel to the whole burnout piece, is they're only bringing part of themselves, or they're only revealing part of themselves. They're not letting the company know all about them. And this whole COVID era has been very revealing, I think, to people that they can't hide, and in a good way, that they're able to say, hey, yeah, here's my kid running through the room,
Right.
or me, my dog, coming over here and bothering me. But I think it's really great that a lot of companies are recognizing the importance of everybody's other parts to them. And I think it's important also that companies periodically do a census in a good way of what are the skills and talents, and what are their experiences, and what do people bring to the table. And then from there, that career path, that's huge. I think that would be a really great way to show that the company cares about the individuals, if they take it that step further for them to say, hey, we have a place for you here long term.
So this is what I will respond to you, Lori. So I find it's great that organizations want that. And this is the danger, that they use it as a cover-up, right? So if the organization actually is not aligned, doesn't have values, or not aligned with the values they're communicating, or then it becomes a hack, bring yourself to work so people feel better. And what I found, it's kind of like this temporary remedy. I also don't think it works in the long term. I'm still for it. I think it's better to have than that not. But on the other thing, if there is truly no value alignment, it's just another hack.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you you go to some of the big banks' website and they talk about, their community work or community banking, and then if you really understand that it's like only a tiny fraction of what it is, but it's so, they talk about inclusiveness, they talk about all these things that kind of shining on the surface. But if you look at fundamentally what is the amount of time, money, effort, people, it's probably a fraction. So again, it becomes like an icing on a mud pie. So that's just to watch out for that.
Gross.
Sorry.
We got Soul Twist, which was so profound, and then we got icing on a mud pie. Thanks, Misha. All right, Misha, thank you so much for being here. Big ups, big TCB. Thank you to Misha.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. I love the ideas. Please connect with Misha and reach out to him. Ruby had put into chat, Misha, something for you. She said, Misha, love your emphasis on values. Thank you so much for the beautiful and magical work that you do in the world.
Thank you. And you guys, I just also want to say, because the world of HR is new to me. I would be happy to chat with you, just to chat, not about careerly, but I would like to understand better what is your experience and what are the things that you're dealing with. So if you in any way, resonating and your values resonating with mine, just reach out to me. Let's just chat.
Love it. Love it. Thanks, Misha. All right, today's funny things. Funny thing number one. These are pretty funny. Never been angrier in my life for not coming up with an idea first. Man stole $122 million from Facebook and Google by simply sending them random bills, which they paid.
Genius.
Right? Funny thing number two, just had to show a cop my driving passport on the way to buy alcohol with my age passport. Maybe later I'll go to Costco with one of my capitalism passports. So shut up about vaccine passports already. This one made me laugh. If you are a spicy nugget, I know a place where you can get a job. It says, Spicy Nuggets, we are hiring.
That's aligned with my values.
This one from the Why Doesn't This Exist department. You should be able to decline an incoming thought. This for my North Plains people, my apple people. I found it, the best apple variety in the orchard, Ludacrisp.
There you go.
And my favorite funny thing today, just had my phone incorrectly autocorrect ducking to fucking, which means I've won. I've finally broken its spirit. How does failure taste, Demon Box? I live for the day that it goes the opposite way, right? Today's good feel story is a quickie. Enjoy this one.
Before we go, a Pennsylvania waiter is gaining national attention for his unexpected act of kindness toward an elderly customer. Facebook photos show Eaton Park server Dylan Teetle joining a 91-year-old military veteran at his dinner table. After kneeling down to take his order, Dylan realized the man could use some company.
He was talking about the war, some of the injuries he had, some of the places he's been, his family. Tears were running down his face. Like, you could just tell this man hasn't had a true caring person to talk to him in a long time. I believe that you giving someone 5 minutes of your day could just completely rearrange how they look at life itself, honestly.
During their conversation, other customers took notice. The person who snapped the pictures wanted to take care of the gentleman's bill, only to learn someone else already had.
Oh, but look at the back of Dylan's t-shirt. It sums it up. Your smile makes my day.
Yeah.
See?
More than just a slogan.
It's more than just a slogan. See? I know. There's a lot of nice people out there. I believe that every day. That'll do it for us. We'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
So being aligned with values, I was going to do a funny cocktail, but you know what? We all need to hydrate, y'all. Today's semi-quarantine cocktail is cool, crisp water. Cool, crisp water, everybody. Thank you again to Misha. It was lovely having you here today. Please connect with them. If you have questions or comments, please reach out. Misha, you're welcome to join us over on the Bartender Network. I'll send you a link to that. Other than that, guys, thank you. Wednesdays are my favorite days, and you guys are my favorite people. We'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time and learned a thing or two at today's happy hour, please share it with your friends. If you want to join our tribe, head on over to skyeteam.cloud/TCB or email us at info@skyeteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again, and remember, you've always got friends at the Corporate Bartender.